there are some times where Trump says something in order to get a reaction from it, and then basically he's working something on the back end. Don't be too good to go back to the things that got you where you are today.
If you're in a market where a lot of people, there's an influx of a lot of people, this one's huge.
Yeah.
Because you don't even realize how many people are moving to this area, and you're going to get some random phone calls that say, hey, look, I've got somebody that's moving from California, moving from Oregon, moving from Florida, wherever.
Right.
And if you can serve, I mean, that's a great way to make 20, 30% right there.
So the more educated you can become around these things, the better for you from a skill and expertise level. If you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, what we're about is teaching you how to make money. I don't really care what side of the political spectrum you're on. Okay, let's talk about tariffs, taxes, and Trump navigating the storm of real estate in 2025 with a new administration. Now, here's what I want to say before we get into this, because we got some feedback from our last podcast where, you know, people are just like, they feel passionately one way or the other from a political perspective. We are not being political here. We are basically, the way that we look at this is like, hey, let's pretend we don't have a dog in the fight. It's 100 years. It's, 21, 25. And we're looking back on this time and observing what's happening in the marketplace. And we're trying to make an opinion based on that. So for you guys who think it's like, okay, well, we're making a political statement one way or the other, we're not. We're just looking at real base level things like economics and stuff like that. So do we have opinions? Yes. Do we have opinions on what's happening in the market? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't really care what side of the political spectrum you're on.
No. I think the best way to look at this is if there were a puppet master pulling economic strings,
Yes.
one way or another,
Uh-huh.
that's what we're talking about. Like if they do this, this could happen. If they do this, this could happen.
Right.
But I think it's important to talk about that just because basic economics says this is what should happen when you make this change, we're learning right now, maybe for the first time ever, that that's just not the case because there's so many global economic factors. There's so much passion, so much emotion in a lot of this, and the way things are framed. And we talked about this last week. The way things are framed, the way things are said, the way things are done, and how drastically things change from day to day. What you think might happen may not happen.
Well, what I can kind of like observe objectively again is there are some times where Trump says something in order to get a reaction from it, and then basically he's working something on the back end.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just take tariffs, for example. Saturday, right? When the markets cannot respond, Saturday, he issues an executive order around tariffs for Mexico and Canada. And it's a firestorm, right? By the end of the day, Monday, it's resolved.
Yeah. And Canada's sitting over here like, what did we do? Like, what does this mean? Like, and they don't even know how to take it. And, Mexico kind of same way. And then, he puts out into, the markets that, hey, look, we had a conversation. Everything's good. We're going to pause it. And so that reaction, makes its way through the markets pretty quickly. And the way information moves now versus the way information moved 30 years ago is causing so much fluctuation from minute to minute. I mean, I can have someone ask me what a rate would look like for their profile, like at 9, and it be drastically different by 11.
Well, I think that's really worth considering, really, in terms of the way the presidency or the administration communicates with the American people, which is vastly different than any than it's ever been done before. Because typically it's like if you're making administrative changes, they're moving slow and you're going to read about them in the paper the next day or for the last however many 100 years, right? But now it's like, well, Trump's going to fire off a tweet, right? And so, and there's nothing in the way. There's no media organization in the way. He just fires off information and it's moving fast.
Well, and I think what people know about Trump is that he's not afraid to say exactly what he thinks.
That's right.
And especially now that he's in term number 2 and he doesn't have to worry about anything from moving forward.
Right.
He's going to make a decision, and like it or not, like that, this is what we're doing. And he's not going to wait and ask for some opinions. He might, but not a lot of them.
If you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, what we're about is teaching you how to make money. All of our podcasts have as the end goal, How do I make money? That's what we're concerned about. We're not
That's right.
concerned with your political views or anybody's political views. We're concerned with how do we make money today, right? And
Absolutely.
so
And
that's what we're
yeah,
going to be talking about. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. And you know, navigating this is a very interesting time for
yeah,
real estate agents and really any small business. Like these are things we have to navigate together. And we're like, hey, put all that aside
yeah.
because it really doesn't matter. And this is what we need to focus on.
That's right. One of the other things that I really sort of struggle with, and there are a couple of things that I can't help but sort of observe. One of them is stock market, right? I don't know how much that weighs into it because I'm looking at, based on what I know from you, when inflation slows and the stock market, is down, right? Then typically we're going to see interest rates kind of match that flow, right? That sort of a negative turn in the economy means a lower interest rates, which would fire back up a real estate market. I think, and if we were to get in the fives, so it's one of the things. But again, I'll have to ask you how much that plays into what's going on, because what I can tell you is with Trump, with the back and forth and confirmation hearings and tariffs and whatever, the stock market's like a freaking roller coaster right now. It
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, this is uncharted territory for one, but it's interesting because if the stock market goes down, if inflation goes down, if interest rates go down,
Mhm.
you would expect people to inject into the housing market and start to buy. But if they're really relying on the stock market, maybe they don't. So it's all stuff we have to navigate, right? Like how much of a crash do we see in the stock market that results in lower rates, things like that. But really, once you start to approach even below the mid sixes,
Mhm.
this thing heats up.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. The sooner it gets there, the better. And
So much pent up demand, so many people ready to move that have been wanting to for a long
yeah,
time, but just can't trade that rate. But I saw a statistic that said by next month, we should cross the threshold of more than 50% of people have higher than a 4.25 interest rate. So that number was below
hmm
4.25 for a long time. As we cross that threshold into above 4.25, the gap gets smaller and smaller. And that's when people
okay,
are like, all right, I don't mind trading this for that.
that's good. Yeah, I guess the messaging for me really around, just what I'm putting out in the marketplace is making a play for equity, because your equity is going to increase if you buy now versus buying at, during a kind of crazy time where you may have competing offers again and you're having to bring a lot more cash to the closing table. And so a lot of my messaging has been around that. It's like, hey, it's better to buy now from an equity perspective and then refinance. Now, what I will say is there's a really good chance I could be wrong. The point I'm trying to make is like, don't be afraid to give your opinion. And I find this with a lot of agents when they're trying to, whether it's a newsletter that they're doing, their email newsletter, or social media, they're super scared about giving an opinion about anything because they don't want to be wrong, or they're afraid someone's going to call them out, or they're afraid that they're going to look like an idiot. Here's what I can tell you. It's more important that people see you giving an opinion than you not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
Right? Even if your opinion's wrong, because nobody's going to remember. In social media, it's a river, right? We've talked about this before. You throw something in on social media, it's gone tomorrow and they've just forgotten about. So don't think so highly of yourself that people are going to just like come at you if you give an opinion that may be incorrect. Okay, but I'll give you an example. But if someone were to like come at you negatively, that's actually good in terms of giving you um giving you some exposure, right? It's going to up the algorithm. Perfect example is like this podcast, which we recorded one on Trump. We got the most negative that out of that podcast than any time before, right? But also we got a lot of views,
A lot of positive
a
too.
lot of more positive. So it's like it's a little bit controversial, even though we weren't being controversial. It's just a sort of a hot topic.
Yep.
But even still, it's like even if somebody disagrees, it still drives that
No one
algorithm and engagement.
yeah, no one has a rate crystal ball, right?
Right.
Like no one on the planet knows what rates are going to be in 6 months. Now, you have a lot of people that have some very good educated guesses of where it might be, but things change very quickly. And if you're not willing to put out an opinion, then you really haven't said anything at all. And look, I mean, Again, no one knows. I'm gonna say what I think,
Mhm.
and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm wrong with a lot of other people too,
Sure.
because people are making statements about what the markets are going to look like. They're putting future prices on Bitcoin every day. They're doing
You're
all
right. Yeah,
kinds
yeah,
of stuff, and no
yeah.
one knows, and no one's going to go back and said, "Hey, Kathy Wood, you were wrong. It never hit $1 million. Bitcoin never hit $1 million."
Well, and the other thing is like some people are like, well, I just don't know enough about that stuff or I'm not educated enough. I'm like, well, get educated. Another thing that I can tell you is it seems to me the interactions that I'm having with consumers out in the marketplace that are in the position to buy or sell are a lot more economically educated and asking a lot more intelligent questions. So the more educated you can become around these things, the better for you from a skill and expertise level.
Yeah, well, if you think about it this way, like people, um, a couple of years ago, they decided they want to move and they just jump in and move. Right now, they decided they want to move
Mhm.
12 or 18 months ago, and they've been sitting on it and they've been researching. And it's tough for them to make a decision. So what do? They dive into Google. Like, should I move? Should I
Right.
not move? Is it the right time? Is it the wrong time? And guess what? The right time is yesterday.
That's right. Always. And 10 years, like I think about this all the time because people were like, hey, I should have, 10 years ago, this house was $300,000. And you know what? I'm like, hey, 10 years from now, you're going to be saying the same thing
Yeah. All the people that
about
said,
the
yeah,
price it is now.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, all the people that said, "Oh, the market's about to crash. I'm not going to buy now." Well, guess what? It went up 6%.
Okay. So the other thing that I want you to do is you need to be turning over rocks and looking for lots of opportunity. And what we've encouraged our agents to do is like, hey, go back to the things that launch you as a real estate agent, like making cold calls to for sale by owners, like doing open houses on Sundays, like doing the things that are going to have you engaged with buyers and sellers that are out in the marketplace now, because there's a high likelihood, depending on where you are, that people are in visiting looking for real estate or the beginning of their search and they're getting out there. And so it's important that you stay active and keep turning over rocks to find new clients. And also make sure you're doing your client events, things like that. Stay in it, right? And even go back and I've talked with agents about this before. The reason to do like for sell by owners, because I know like there's a lot of talk out there in the real estate world that for sell by owners don't work and open houses don't work, which is completely false. They absolutely do work. We see it every day. We see for sell by owners turn into listings. We see open house buyers turn into contracts. Okay, so it is real. Don't let someone talk you out of it. And also, it's the source for so much future business, potential future business, because you're going to meet, let's say it's a for sale by owner, they're going to need to buy something. You meet somebody at open house, they're going to have a friend or family member that's going to buy. So there's tons of opportunity that's out there to be found just by continuing to turn over those rocks.
Yep.
So the other one is like lunch and coffee with influential people that are already in your community, because they're going to be the most likely to refer you. So make sure that you're staying, in front of those influential people. Again, be service oriented. Don't look for how you can take from someone, but look for how you can give to them.
Don't forget the email list. Don't forget the email list, because
No,
that's one
yeah.
where it's like, if you've ever heard the phrase, "Oh, I forgot you were a real estate agent," the email list would have solved that.
This reminds me of, do you know who Bob Odenkirk is? He was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Better Call Saul. So he was Saul Goodman on Breaking Bad, which is a huge hit show, right? If you didn't watch that, but a lot of people at least know about it. Well, anyway, there was a time where in this, in the process, I guess he had been doing a lot of like independent films and doing stuff that he liked. And he got this offer or he got some paperwork to sign from his agent to take out like a $500,000 loan. And so he called the secretary. He's like, hey, what's this $500,000 loan? She goes, oh, hang on. He hadn't called you about that? She goes, no. So he calls his agent. He goes, hey, what's this? He goes, this is going to buy us some time because right now we're real low on money. And he goes, okay. Well, so he fired his agent and he found a new agent. This new agent said, hey, right now, he said, you're going to be fine. He said, but you're not turning down work right now. You're going to take every opportunity that comes at you and we're going to get through this. And sure enough, one of the jobs he got offered, which was Saul Goodman, just a small part on Breaking Bad, that ended up turning into his own hit show.
Yeah, he wasn't even supposed to be a kind of a really a big part of Breaking Bad. He just
And
owned the screen when he had it.
That's exactly right. And so I think about that story so much because, I've been in that position so many times in my life, and I've seen other agents in that position so many times in their lives. And it's like, hey, look, don't be too good to go back to the things that got you where you are today. Because I remember, it's like, I remember what it was like being out there. And it's like, the thing happens is like, I don't want to ever have to do FISBOs again, or I don't really want to have to give my Saturday afternoons again. And it's like, well, sometimes you got to go back and grind a little bit to make some things happen and to create opportunities so that you can get back to the space that you're in. And, it's like, we don't know what the market's going to do. I can say objectively that it's a lot slower than it has been.
Yeah.
Mortgage applications are down.
Yep.
That doesn't mean, again, that's not to be discouraging. It doesn't mean you can't make money. You're just going to have to kind of potentially go back to the things that got you there in the first place.
Yep.
So don't be lazy. Look for the opportunities. The other one is plugging in with agents all over the country. So look, you might have a little more time because you're not showing houses, right? But what I would do is like start attending agent events. Really what I'd look for is like webinars and or events that are out of town, or events in your town where agents are coming from out of town. So that way you can start to network with people that are in high traffic areas.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you're in a market where a lot of people, there's an influx of a lot of people, this one's huge.
Yeah.
Because you don't even realize how many people are moving to this area, and you're going to get some random phone calls that say, "Hey, look, I've got somebody that's moving from California, moving from Oregon, moving from Florida, wherever."
Right.
And if you can serve, I mean, that's a great way to make 20-30% right there.
There's no question. Yeah, you can refer out or referring in. And we got a ton of business from agent referrals from, Houston and Oklahoma and, all over. And just as an example, we had an agent from Oklahoma refer to us, and they bought a house. And then his sister, who had already lived here, got married, and they're looking for a house. So, again, it was just one turns into two most of the time. So yeah, stay after it, and you'd be surprised what can happen.
Yeah. My wife and I went on a trip to Alabama, at the beach in Alabama, Orange Beach, like 6 or 7 years ago with some of her friends and their husbands and all that. And we met a real estate agent at a restaurant, and we were just having a conversation because we were all in real estate or whatever. And she stayed in touch with us over the 6 or 7 years, always, just like consistently, how's business, just random kind of texts and phone calls. And guess what? I had a client that I closed right down the street here in Franklin on their primary home, and they want to buy at Orange Beach. Who do you think I called?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So now she's going to do a $800,000 or $900,000 deal at the beach. I'm going to make my 25-30%, and we're all going to move about our day.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It was just a random restaurant, connection.
I want to give a pro tip for webinars, by the way, because we host webinars, and you're going to see this year, you'll see a webinar from us every month, and I want you guys to come to them. Okay, here's your pro tip. If you want to network in a webinar, first of all, be the person in the chat box that's talking.
Yeah.
Right? Or say, encourage the speaker, or there's opportunities for side conversations in there. Usually the webinar, they're like, hey, everybody tell me where you're coming from. Identify people there, right? Be there 5 minutes early, identify people, be the person that's engaged. And I can tell you, as someone who hosts a webinar, it's so much easier when people are engaged. And I try to be on the team just because I've done so much speaking and done so many of these sort of webinars. I try to be on the team of the person that's speaking.
Yeah.
Right. And be an encouragement to them.
You're going to get more out of them.
And you're going to get more out of them, and you have a high likelihood to meet other people. And I went to a deal the other day. It was like a forum for the Association of Realtors. And I met like 4 or 5 people, and a couple of them I'm having coffee with this week. So, again, it's still possible to engage with people on a webinar, but you're not going to just sit back and watch a screen and something happens, right?
Yeah, no.
So be engaged, go in there, comment, find the other people that are commenting, connect with them. And that's how you kind of start that network. And put them as a friend on Facebook. And then that kind of keeps them in your or Instagram, and keeps them in your circle. The other thing is the financial management here, right? Of you as you're kind of going into what might be, look, regardless of if the market's good or bad, you need to be a better financial manager, right? And understanding what your monthly budget is for your expenses, and staying in that, understanding profitability, understanding profit and loss. And one of the things that, I've recommended to people before, I don't know how you feel about this, but If you're kind of going into a place where it's like, okay, I've got to really trim down and save money, I'm like, cancel your debit card and let all of that stuff like hit and see what you're paying for before you get a new debit card, right? And find out what you're paying for. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. You probably have like a spreadsheet, you know
Yeah,
everything
I
about
have a
yours.
spreadsheet.
But if you're like me, like a typical real estate agent, I'm like, I don't even remember some of the stuff that I subscribe to. So, that's one deal, but also just understanding where your money is going. How much is going to marketing? How much is going to eating out? How much is going to gas? Things like that. And when you understand the different monetary amounts and where they go and what part of your business they are, it's going to help you make better financial decisions and understand what you have to make it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just operating like a crazy person.
If you're not making a return on anything that you're subscribed to, then you need to cut it. Like
Yeah.
what I mean by that is like, the easy one is leads, right? Like let's say you're paying for Zillow leads, you're paying $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And if you're not making more than $1,000 a month in return,
Yeah.
cancel it. And
Right.
and if it's basically net zero, you might also think about canceling it. There needs to be a return on anything that you're doing.
Yes.
And that goes for time too. Like if you're investing hours of your day into doing something that's not benefiting your business, cut it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Bottom line.
The final piece of this is we are getting ready to launch our first, I'm really excited about this, our Agent Bridge Mastermind. We're going to be launching that off mid-February. We're sending out dates. We would love for you guys to join. We're going to have, it's going to be extremely affordable. And what we found in this sort of mastermind or in this idea of the mastermind is like, we wanted to meet agents where they are right now, which is where you guys need a lot of, help sort of navigating an uncertain market, but also things that are like, any sort of product is really expensive. And so we've brought down, or we've created some really competitive pricing for you guys to engage and be a part of what's going on at the Agent Bridge and learn from and have access to everything that you need for your education. So we're really excited to launch it. Anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, I just that we're also moving our flagship product, the course, the 8-week
Yes.
course, 6-figure school, into a subscription model, which I think will also provide that as a service to agents that is much more affordable.
Yeah, I'm super excited about
Yeah.
it.
So, and obviously, if you're in 6-figure school, you can join the masterminds while you're in 6-figure school. You can choose to join the masterminds after if you want, but 6-figure school being a subscription, I think will just make it so much more accessible for agents across the country.
Yeah, if you don't know what a mastermind is basically we're going to put you in a group of agents that are a similar income structure as you, and we're going to talk about the issues that you're having, the wins that you're having. And by sharing the information together, it's going to help you guys grow that much further. Also, sharing resources, things that work. And the only way to really do this effectively is to get agents together. And usually you're going to take away one dynamic idea from each mastermind and implement it in your business and create success. And so we've had a lot of success doing this before, and we're excited to sort of package it all in one place and make it accessible for you guys.
And if you need accountability, this is a great place to get it after you wrap up with 6-figure school. Because what we find is a lot of people who need that oversight, that accountability, while they're in 6-figure school, they're thriving, right? They're doing, couple $1 million worth of deals, and then they get out and they lose that accountability, and maybe they fall back into some of their own old habits. This mastermind is something else that we can offer that allows that accountability to continue after, and not only that, but just keep that as a refresher, because we're constantly adding new material to 6-figure school, and that's something we can also talk about on Mastermind.
Yeah, so we're excited to launch that. Be paying attention. You're going to see a lot of stuff come from us on that. And any final words?
Nope.
Awesome. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Bye.